Should be live.
Yeah, we already got some people trickling in. That's awesome.
Peter, how's it going? We'll see if we can reach Peter's level of expertise with hosting live games.
I believe in you, Sean.
Yeah.
Megan, last time I had way to die, but it didn't seem to help me out that much. So we're gonna have to put some new tricks on Sean.
All right.
See what we could do.
It's, I think you had an inject because of 3 fails in a row last time.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
no.
Maybe
3 bad fails in a row.
if Alex is bad again, maybe this is his last time with us for a little bit.
You get the boot.
Right.
Was
Kick
that
him
was
outta
it?
here.
So is this your second time playing today, Alex?
This is
Yeah, it's my second time, but I helped create part of the deck, so it was even more
I
frustrating that I couldn't
know.
get. I couldn't get the incident when he used the card that I helped make.
What a cool
he
opportunity.
created the answers to the test and then didn't do so
studying
hot
hard
on the
enough,
test.
Well, just goes to show you that's true. What equality or equity in the game, right? Doesn't matter how much of a role. It's all up to the dice.
Which is, I mean, that's part of what makes this such a fun game,
Yeah.
right? Because in like the historical tabletopping, people get around a table in a conference room for an hour
Yep.
and they talk about the same, 3 things. What are we going to do if we get ransomware? What are we going to do with phishing emails?
Yep.
And, yeah, we've got run books for that, or we'd be able to handle that. And you're not really learning much, right? And oftentimes, the person that probably needs the tabletop the most ends up being the person that has to design the scenario and then run
Exactly.
the session.
Mhm.
So this takes some of that away, gamifies it to an extent, but also lets them participate as well. That's probably the biggest thing we've
That's a
seen
really good point.
is, hey, the CISO or whoever's running security for that group is now able to actively participate in an incident.
Yeah. And it cuts out a lot. I remember when I was building exercises too, more, it's like you always had to put in, that slide in that had all the caveats, this is a scenario, don't, be a killer of the game and all that stuff. So this really adds that chance and that you just literally have to roll with it. I actually remember I was thinking back, my home office is a mess, but I actually got 2 of the decks, I think when they were first coming out, and they got mailed to me like right before COVID hit, and we all were work remote indefinitely, and we were going to use it. The IR team, myself and my coworkers, were going to use it with our individual lines of business to try and provide both the just kind of camaraderie and team building, and also adding that technical, obviously, component.
Yeah, so it's funny. There's been a bunch of expansion decks in the last year, so I finally just went online and bought all of them so that I have them, right? You've got access to them online, but being able to use those kind of in person is fun, even just to show people, like, hey, this is a resource that's out there.
How many expansion packs are they up to now?
I think 6.
They have,
Nice.
yeah, they have 2 of their own, right? And then they have
so really 8 if you count the Dragos folks created an OT specific core deck, right? So it's not really an expansion, but it's a spin-off specifically to operational technology. There's the core deck, and then it's up to 7 decks there, and at least online, they've translated the core deck into Spanish as well.
That's very cool. That's something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, right? Because we have a lot of folks that are either trying to reskill or they're coming from, we're actually one of our partner consortium member schools has a partnership with an organization called El Centro in Boston. And so they're taking folks that, were doing either traditional IT or cybersecurity oftentimes in their home country. They're here trying to reskill now. And so being able to have multilingual products for people to practice on and provide one less barrier, right? Learning in general, some of the technical things, right? That's hard enough. And then when you add on also trying to learn English to it. So very cool.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. We definitely learned a lot going through. Right, playing the game is certainly one thing to get a hang of and kind of learning all the content in there, but then actually trying to come up with expansion decks and having things that are unique enough to warrant being added to the game
Yeah.
was an interesting challenge. Let's see, we're a minute past 1 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. So thank you all for either joining us live or watching the recording here. We'll be playing a game of Backdoors and Breaches live here. But to give you a quick primer before we jump into the game. So, up to an hour is what we've set aside for this, but a lot of that is going to depend on how Megan and Alex roll on the die. The biggest factor of what we're doing here is you can have all the run books and controls in place, but just like real world incidents, sometimes fate has different plans. So we have comments open if folks want to try and participate live with Megan and Alex as they try and solve the incident. You can do so. We'll be able to see comments popping up if you're giving them ideas or want to add context, ask questions, anything like that. What we're doing is using Backdoors and Breaches, which is meant to be educational and fun to help folks run tabletops, but also just get familiar with incident response overall. Just a quick background before Megan and Alex introduce themselves. We're using the online version, which is at play.backdoorsandbreaches.com. Freely available. You can use all sorts of different cards. You can build custom scenarios, which is what we're doing today. You can just have the cards randomly assigned and play through it that way. You can also get the physical cards through the Spearfish General Store, which is that Shopify link down at the bottom. Really great resources either way. I like to encourage folks to buy the physical cards when they can. So it's not a profit-making exercise by the folks at Black Hills. What's really nice is they make those cards available for purchase so that money can fund the shipping of cards to educators all over the place. So teachers, professors, etc., can request cards for the game to play with their students, and those will be sent out free of charge. So with that, we have two people acting as defenders for us today, trying to solve this incident that I've designed. Megan, you want to give a quick introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sean. Happy to be here. I actually remember one of my former employers used Black Hills Information Security as a vendor. Had a great experience with them. And so, to your point, Sean, it's great. They do so much to give back to the community, as does Wolf and Company. So, great to be here, and thank you for having me. My background, I've been in the cybersecurity field for, probably about 12 or 13 years now. I started out, this is my second career. I was a social worker before this, but got exposed to cybersecurity through law enforcement working in Rhode Island, and then pivoted and did some digital forensics and incident response work before being with Cyber Trust Now, which is a nonprofit organization that is working to provide and increase the accessibility of experiential learning tools to our students and our next generation of workforce. So hello to everyone out there. I saw someone mention that they're here representing their husband who's having trouble connecting but is a new professional. So glad to have folks here from all stages in their career. And if you're either on the education side and looking to learn more about what we offer to educational institutions, or if you're a corporate partner looking to, find out how you can support our work, like Wolf and Company, who is a wonderful partner of ours, hit me up or scan the QR code. But looking forward. This is my first. Game playing here, so hopefully maybe I have an easier time than poor Alex did last time. Got to carry your weight today, Alex. Come on.
Yeah, that's a good segue. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Marchosian. I'm one of the lead penetration testers. I'm really excited that we have Megan, a true defensive mind here. I think we mixed in too many offensive-minded people the first time we went around with doing this and failed a couple of roles. So I assisted with creating the deck. I've been with the group for a little over 5 years. So I'm just really excited to actually see this live and play it out once more. And hopefully we get some more better roles coming out against John. So yeah, excited to be here. Let's see what we have.
All right, so with that, just a quick primer on the game here. So I've designed a little incident for Megan and Alex to solve. And really there's 4 different aspects of the incident that they're trying to uncover throughout the gameplay here. They're going to try and figure out how the attackers gained that initial access, how they were able to pivot or escalate throughout the environment, how they were able to either establish command and control or exfiltrate data, and then finally how they were able to maintain persistence in the environment. As far as the gameplay itself, there are 10 turns that you two will get for this. And what I mean by that is you are randomly assigned 4 different procedures that will have that +3 modifier. And all the other procedures in the game you will have access to. So in the course of 10 turns, you're going to select one procedure and then tell me what you're trying to get out of it through looking at that procedure. And then we're going to roll a die. And if you roll between a 0 and a 10, that's going to be considered a fail. So I'll give you some reason as to why that control didn't really give you any information or help you out in the response process here. If you get an 11 through a 20, that's going to be a success. Now, that will help you if that control matches up to one of those 4 attacker cards. If not, I'll give you some guidance there as well to keep the incident moving. That +3 modifier that I mentioned, those 4 randomly assigned procedures that you have, if you say roll a 10, but it happens to be one of those 4 established procedures, that's going to count as a 13 and therefore a successful roll. The concept there is to help folks understand the difference between knowing about a technology and a control versus having it fully implemented, all of your staff trained, SOPs documented, everything kind of firing on all cylinders there. The last thing to note is some injects. So again, it's a game, and not only do we have the D20 to introduce some randomness, but we have the injects. If you either roll a 1, a 20, or you have 3 failed rolls in a row, you're going to get an inject card. It could be good, it could be bad. To be honest, I think about 90% of them are negative injects, so be prepared for those. But again, introduces a little bit of chaos to the response effort and tries to make it feel a little bit more real world. All right, so that's the quick primer. Any questions before we get started? You two are good. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. So to give you a bit of background and let you start your response efforts, you two folks are working at Acme Corp. Normal Tuesday in the office. And then right around lunchtime, you're out getting a sandwich for lunch. You start getting a bunch of alerts flooding in from your SIM. And there's some weird authentication errors and then some concurrent login error messages coming through to you folks. So, you drop what you're doing, run back to the office, and that brings us to where we are right now. So with that, where do you folks want to start? The established procedures, and just in case the text is a little small for folks, are these top 4 procedures here. Megan and Alex, if you're looking to, read any more about these, I can click on it and it'll blow up the card, read it a bit more detail for you. which actually reminds me, one last note for folks just tuning in for the first time to Backdoors and Breaches. The structure of the cards are meant to be educational. So we're talking about a control, but you're going to get some examples of tools that can help out with this, and then links out to those tools or resources to learn. So let me close that so you can see what you have for both your established procedures and everything else.
So I think if I'm looking at the other procedures, we've got, I just want to make sure I'm reading them properly. Memory analysis, endpoint security protection, cyber deception, endpoint analysis, cloud event, firewall log, network. What's that? What's the third from the right there?
Firewall log review is after cloud.
Okay.
Network threat hunting is Zeek analysis. We're using Rita, permissions audit, and server analysis.
All right. Well, I think the first thing that I would want to do is look in my UEBA tool. Oh, thank you. That's lovely, Sean. I'd want to look at my UEBA tool and see, you know, kind of some more details about these alerts and what my platform is giving me.
Yeah, I completely agree. We
so
heard
this is an
log on
established
attempts.
procedure.
Oh,
Go ahead, Alex.
I'm
going to say this is an established procedure, so you're going to get that plus modifier on your roll.
All right.
Alex, did you want to add anything? We were both starting and stopping.
I heard the +3 modifier.
I think my audio was just cutting out. Let's try. I'm going to reduce my video. Okay. I'm going to see if that works better.
Sure. So we're going to go ahead and we'll call your user and entity behavior analytics. Megan called that. So we'll roll. And so it's a 9, but because it's that +3 modifier, comes through as a 12. So that is a successful roll for you, which is great. So I'm looking at what we have here. I'm going to give you your initial compromise card. So credential stuffing attack, right? That's how your attackers got in. Some of your end users were reusing passwords that were captured in a previous breach. And so with that, you know, they're able to take a matching email and password, throw it into some of your publicly accessible login pages. And hey, you know what? They got some successful access at that point. So now you know how your attackers got in, revealing one card. Let me actually flip this over for you. Revealing one card on the first roll is pretty good. You're off to a good start here.
Oh no, that's either a sign of worse rolls to come or what?
Again, calling back to our last game with Alex, Megan, this is a good sign for you.
This is a great sign.
All right, so you have those. You got those login issues, the alerts that triggered everything. You took a look at your user and entity behavior analytics tool, and again, you're able to detect some credential stuffing on some publicly accessible login pages. Where do you want to go from there?
Well, just talking this from a scenario perspective, right? If we know what credentials, we want to, understand who those users are, what machines they have access to. So, thinking, we could do a couple different ones, I guess. Looking at the endpoint of successful logins. Let's try that one.
The endpoint security analysis?
Yeah.
Endpoint protection.
Yes, thank you.
This procedure card, just to make sure I'm grabbing the right one for you.
Yeah, I was thinking this would make sense since we know that they got in from credentials and now we're looking at pivot or the SIM itself. We have that at a +3. We're experts with our SIM, and that's where some of the events were coming out of it. So
I know.
I think either endpoint or SIM would be good.
Yeah, I was thinking about the sim too. Are we feeling lucky today, Alex? You want to try the one with the +3 first, I guess? See what happens?
Hey, you got the first hit, so I'm going to let you keep rolling. I mean,
Hey, all right,
I don't
let's
want to
try
I don't want to temper it.
let's try the sim one. Well, let's go for gold here.
Okay,
All
let's do
right, so
it.
yeah, so we're gonna look at a sim. This is another established one. So not only do you have a sim in place, but hopefully, the intent here is you're actually collecting logs from the right sources. Those audit policies are set up to actually be collecting the correct information, and we'll see what you got. So another +3 roll, and
Ooh.
strike one, first fail of
All
the day.
right.
So, like I said, the idea was you would have the sim set up to be collecting information from the right resources, the audit policy set up properly. But unfortunately, looking back at the sim here, it looks like there's a major version upgrade a couple of weeks ago that you all had to roll back from. And as part of that, it was a very messy rollback where a bunch of your configuration files got corrupted, and folks are still in the process of rebuilding that. So unfortunately, the sim is not being as helpful as you had hoped today.
All right. Let's pivot then, and let's see. We at least have the user information from our UEBA tool. So let's go to endpoint security protection and analysis and go there.
So two things to add. One, I just put the marker on there. So since that was a failed roll on that procedure, you can't call that procedure again for 3 turns. But that also brings up the thought, the UEBA, you did call successfully on the first turn. You happen to be looking at that from the external because of some of those concurrent login errors. You can always go back to that again. It's just a reminder.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, let's go to endpoint. And I think I noticed we've got an educator here on the call as well. It's a good reminder for folks that are newer in this profession, right? I think from a vendor perspective, we hear a lot about that single pane of glass. But one of the great things that gets underscored in a scenario like this as well, right, is we have a lot of different tools that we use. And for various reasons, right, a tool may be down or not configured in that way. So hopefully we have, a defense in depth model where we can pivot to other tools and get visibility from in other ways.
Yeah. All right. So endpoint security protection and analysis. You don't have the +3 here, so just a regular roll. Unfortunately, another fail. So let's strike 2 in a row. So just a reminder, another fail, and you'll end up with an inject card coming out. I've shuffled around those tiles, so keeping track of when you can go back to those procedures if you wanted to. So again, endpoint security. Why did that fail? We thought we had a great EDR deployed. Unfortunately, it was set up and installed and then kind of forgotten about. So that project is in flight. You've got high hopes for that deployment, but without getting it wrapped up, it's not really going to do you a whole lot of good.
All right, I'm thinking, how about, can we look at the endpoint analysis card and see what that says? Maybe we can go to the workstation level and really roll up our sleeves, maybe do some CLI tools that way.
Yep. Yeah. So this is really meant to do that hands-on analysis of one of those impacted endpoints. Now here, I think we identified some credential sets that were compromised through this as far as an initial entry point. So are you thinking you'll go to those folks and take a look to see if there's anything related to the compromise on their local machines?
Yeah, I think twofold. I think that's, there's 2 courses of action here. For a lean team, probably the first thing I would want to do would be to reset the credentials, to your point, right? Stop the bleeding. Also try to limit, right? if we don't know, we don't have a lot of information about the threat actor right now. So if I take the tactic of resetting the credentials, I'm kind of forcing, additional movement that I might pick up through some of my other tools. So I think first, reset would be my first action I'd want to take. And then secondarily, right, see if I can pull any artifacts off those individual machines.
Right. All
Yeah,
right. So
I agree. I
analysis,
think that makes sense.
All right.
So another natural roll here. Let's see what we've. Oh man! All
Oh
right.
man, 3 in a row.
So Alex is
Oh no!
not helping out.
First inject.
So yeah. So unfortunately, right in this case, you went to some of those folks that you saw some of their suspicious logins from that credential stuffing attack, and whether it's your team has some rusty skills and needs to go back for some more training or what. Unfortunately, you weren't seeing anything on that laptop you're able to take a look at. So with that, we get our first inject here. So let's shuffle this. We'll draw an inject.
Hopefully it's a good one.
This is not a good
many,
one.
Many bad ones.
Oh no!
So
The worst thing for an incident
That's not a good one.
responder.
while you are trying to figure out what's going on with this incident, the attackers have started to post some of your internal sensitive data to Pastebin. You've now got customers being notified via media news stories that their sensitive information, personally identifiable information, payment information, all sorts of data maybe you shouldn't even have internally, but you do, and the attackers found it, and they've now started posting it to Pastebin, essentially as part of a proof of their access to your environment and a little bit of a taunt to you, saying, look, we're in here, look at what we have access to, and you still don't know where we're at. So add some complexities to your dealing with management, certainly. But the one good sign for you two is that this isn't a game impacting inject. So some of them have negative impacts on the rolling or taking away turns, or perhaps having people have to sit out a certain number of rolls. You don't have that. You've got certainly a lot of added stress now through your incident with your data being out there, and certainly a much longer tail to the incident with some likely legal and regulatory issues to clean up afterwards. But aside from maybe some extra briefings to senior leadership, you all can continue working through your response efforts.
Yeah, my phone's just going to be ringing
That's
off
tricky.
the hook in the background. Alex,
So you have 6 turns remaining.
Well, I mean, what I was thinking next, what we could do, Megan. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe we look at the firewall logs or try to do threat hunting, because it seems that even if we rotated the credentials, they have persistence. They just taunted us. They showcase that they have some sort of access. So maybe those users we rotated out, but they have some sort of persistence on our machines to try and figure out what the C2 or how they're getting the data out. So maybe a firewall log review or threat hunt is what I'm thinking. Curious what your thoughts are, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, if we're talking about a lean team, I'd probably go firewall log first, because in theory, right, we should be able to, hopefully, be able to kind of identify something abnormal relatively quicker. Threat hunts, as we all know, can take a little time. So let's see what our firewall log review might yield.
Okay. Yep. So we're going to take a look. Hey, can we figure out exactly what's going on? Another, non-modified role, but we'll go for a firewall log review.
Yes.
All right. Finally.
There we go.
Yeah. Success for you two. So you take a look at the firewall, and hey, you know what? There is some strange activity. You're actually seeing a significant amount of traffic going out over various social media channels from several different end user machines. You've got the acceptable use policies in place, right, where folks aren't supposed to be using social media on their corporate boxes outside of the marketing group. But as we talked about before, some of that endpoint security deployment didn't necessarily get fully completed. So you don't have the ability at this point to restrict that access. But you are seeing a significant amount of volume going out to things like Twitter, Instagram, a few various social media platforms that really seems like an unusual amount of bandwidth there.
Suspicious.
All right. Yeah, so with that added, you're halfway through your turns. You've got 5 left here. Right, so just to recap, we've got the credential stuffing internally, some previously compromised passwords. You've taken a look at a couple things internally without a whole lot of information coming back. But we've now at least identified the attackers that are in the environment are communicating through social media as their C2 and potentially as part of that data exfiltration as well. Where do you want to go from here?
Yeah, Alex, I mean, I'm thinking we could go, I'm initially thinking our options, right, are either isolation or isolation of the endpoints or putting in blocks on the firewall. When I think about this, a lot of times it's, a business decision, like one's kind of a hammer, one's kind of a little bit more of a finesse, right? If the business really in the marketing team is like, we need to continue to have access to our socials, etc., then it becomes, that becomes an interesting conversation. What's your perspective on this?
So 3 turns have passed, I think, for our SIM, and we haven't used our user entity behavior analytics just yet. But I was thinking of potentially going back to the SIM just because we are experts in it. We'll still get the +3. I really feel like there's some sort of activity that we're missing that we were able to capture and it got centralized. So we now know that the C2 channel was using trusted media or sites, so such as Gmail or Salesforce, Twitter. We know where the activity was coming from, but we don't exactly know what process, or at least at the endpoint level, whether it be some sort of pivot or escalation that those actors performed. So I still think there's either on the SIM side that we could potentially identify that activity, or on the user entity behavior analytics again.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Sean, could you pull up the crisis management card too? I'm just thinking, one thing that we haven't really talked about is because of that inject, right, we are going to be getting a lot of phone calls and having to now manage not just the technical piece of it, but also kind of managing up. So that's another thing to consider as well, I think.
Your PR efforts have certainly had to ramp up here as part of this incident now. But yeah, this procedure is really meant around that PR and customer communication and notification process.
Okay. All right. So more towards, I guess, what I would consider, once you complete your investigate, kind of towards the tail end of that incident response cycle. Okay. Let's go for the +3. Alex, you want to do SIM or UEBA? It's a little delayed for me. I'm thinking SIM.
Your choice.
Let's go SIM.
Okay, we'll call SIM. So we're going back to the SIM. Again, just to pull it up so everyone can see this. Hopefully, some better luck this time around.
All right, we read your mind, Alex.
That's it. We'll go for the SIM. And look at that, resounding success. So this time you go back to the SIM. Maybe last time you went there looking for a bit of information around, some of the endpoints specifically. But this time you went back to say, hey, can maybe we look at the server side of what's going on? And you were able to reveal the pivot and escalate. So once the attackers did get in through that credential stuffing, they did some internal password spraying. So similar to the credential stuffing, right? But the credential stuffing being passwords that your end users had used on other websites that were disclosed, right, through some sort of breach, and also happen to be using that password with your corporate ID. Here, they're taking what they can see about the usernames available in the environment and doing things like trying to log in with spring 2024 exclamation point, sending some of those login requests throughout the network. And unfortunately, some of your users, including some folks with elevated access rights, were using easy to guess passwords. And that's not only how the attackers were able to pivot throughout the environment and move past that initial foothold, but also escalate their privileges and start getting access to some of that real sensitive information that has unfortunately ended up on Pastebin. Update your cards here. So endpoint security is back on the table for you. You've got 4 turns remaining.
We have some
and only one.
serious issues with their password policy.
Yeah, we're absolutely, our list of lessons learned is running pretty long here, and pretty focused at least.
Well, the last card that we need is persistence. So
Yeah.
I still think you were right on track with endpoint part of thinking. So some sort of memory analysis or EDR again, even server analysis, because they got domain admin or some admin privileges from
Right.
guessing. So I assume they probably pivoted to some sort of system. So now I'm thinking either server analysis or go back to your EDR point is one way that we could maybe pull out the persistence.
Yeah. Let's do some server analysis.
All right.
I'm for it.
Here, this is similar to what we looked at beforehand with some of that hands-on, incident response analysis, but really focused on your servers, not necessarily those impacted end users. So maybe taking a look at some of the domain controllers that authenticated the internal password spray, or maybe the server storing some of that sensitive information that ended up on Pastebin to try and figure out what exactly is going. All right, so a non-modified roll, and unfortunately a failure there. Luckily, not an automatic inject because it's your first fail in a little while. Get endpoint analysis back on the table, and you have 3 turns remaining. So you went to look at that, maybe the file share where you thought some of that information came from, but really aren't seeing anything out of the ordinary. The configuration seems to match the expected baseline, and you're not seeing anything from a local log or artifact perspective that's giving you a whole lot of information as far as how the attackers maintained their persistence.
I think you're right, Alex. Going back to your last point, let's try and look into some memory, see what happens, especially clocks ticking. We could be worried about them, wiping, restarting machines. Depends on what time of day, right? If users are going to log off for the day as well, we don't want to lose. We don't want to risk losing those.
So here, are you thinking of doing memory analysis on
some sort of
some
memory
of
analysis
those of the impacted end users, or are you looking at any of a server perspective? What are you thinking?
Well, we did. So based on the last failed turn, we didn't see anything abnormal, right, on the servers based on the visibility we had. So with that information, I think I probably would go to impacted endpoints and do memory analysis there based on the information.
I think that makes sense too. I mean, the threat actors somehow got in. They must have used a breachhead where that C2 was originally used, but they must have some sort of backup that we just didn't find. So I think on endpoint again, performing the memory analysis. Let's see if we can pull out an artifact.
All right, let's go for it. A
Hey!
success. Awesome. So you pulled one of those end user laptops that was impacted, maybe one of the devices that was sending out that internal password spray. Unfortunately, that machine had been restarted by the end user. As I mentioned, the incident kind of all started around lunchtime. They happened to be going out to meet a prospect for lunch and, close their laptop down on their way back in. And so, unfortunately, nothing there from the memory dump for you.
Well, Megan, I think it's time to go back to what we're good at. I think in incident response, my thinking is that oftentimes we try to put too many tools or too many corrections at once, and maybe we need to stick at what we're really good at. So I think choosing either user behavior analytics again, or SIM or isolation even to the end, see and stick to what we can actually get lucky on to pull out the persistence. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's a balance, right? When you take an action, are you in theory taking an action too early where then, you're kind of playing that whack-a-mole? But I think in this case, right, in some case, our worst case scenario of that information already being out there has already happened. So based on the information we have of, we don't necessarily have the visibility we want so far. I'm kind of leaning towards, let's see if we can stop the bleeding, and see if that, maybe whack-a-mole approach gives us any more information. So I'm kind of tending towards isolation.
Okay. So isolation here. So, hey, some of those systems that were sending out login requests, let's quarantine those, at least stop the bleeding, like you said, and see what's happening. That is a modified procedure for you and was a success, which is great, staving off the injects. But unfortunately, so you lock down some of those endpoints, but that's not stopping the activity. There's just like we had the paste bin upload before, there's been a new round of data uploads, and the attackers are still taunting as far as pointing out, hey, we're still in there. You folks don't even know where we are. What kind of organization you're running. That sort of taunting that we've seen from some of these threat actors, and unfortunately, the isolation of those impacted end user machines has not been fruitful.
Alex, I think we might have to go, although I'm tempted to go UEBA because we've got the modifier. I think we almost we're at the point where we got to do some serious threat hunting.
Yeah, I think we've exhausted almost everything we did on endpoint perspective and even server analysis. I really don't think we're going to get anything out of doing any more memory or scanning of an endpoint itself. I think we have to go the network wide. So either threat hunting, SIM, see what we can kind of pull out from our different tooling, because apparently our tooling that we have right now isn't finding them. So maybe some sort of network-based one will find them.
Yeah, I was also considering, another look. I think we tried the firewalls, right? We didn't see a whole lot there, but maybe if we give it a second pass, because we know it's getting out there somewhere. You want to try firewall?
Yep. Yeah, why not?
All right, so firewall log review for your last turn here, a bit of a Hail Mary toss to say, hey, can we see anything else to give us some information around the persistence? So with that, we will roll. That is a successful roll, but unfortunately for you two, is not providing any further clarity. So the incident has now reached a point where senior leadership has, unfortunately, I think, lost faith in you two, and they've brought in some external parties to finish up the incident response exercise and take care of it. And so your involvement here has come to a close. Just to close out the story here, there was a new user added. So after the attackers were successful with the internal password spray, They did successfully land an administrative set of credentials where they're able to create a new user. And so you went around isolating some of those initially compromised users, but did not know about the attacker's new user account. All right, so that was an unfortunate ending here, I think, for you guys. But certainly appreciate you playing. Oops, let me fix this. Playing along. Thanks to those that tuned in and threw in some comments. Again, played at backdoorsandbreaches.com to play for free online. Really a great resource for not only learning some of the new attack techniques and defensive measures you could be taking and implementing in your organization, but a fun way to gamify that tabletop process so that you do get to think about, we have plan A and hopefully that works every time, but what happens if it doesn't? And this can help you think of how to develop some of those layers of controls. So with that, Megan, Alex, any parting thoughts?
I thank you. No, this was a lot of fun. And I think I would say again, because I know just reading some of the comments, right, we have a couple of newer professionals and educators. I actually think, and someone mentioned like that they have the hard, card decks themselves, but haven't opened them. I actually think for new professionals and folks learning, you could actually use these yourself, right? Go through the card deck, kind of stage a game yourself, and just I was talking to students the other night, half of cybersecurity, right, is that mentality of, going through what are the stages of the MITRE attack framework. When I get dropped into an incident, what am I finding? And where does that mean I'm at in that framework to understand where to lead the investigation next? So I think that's the only pointer that I would give. And just thank you and shout out, give props to Wolf and Company and DenSecure. As folks may have heard at the top of the hour, they have created, an additional, what's the term, guys? The, like a additional add-on pack, right? So
Yeah,
very,
expansion
very
deck.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alex, any closing thoughts for you?
Yeah, I saw some comments in the chat about what kind of game this is for from an age perspective. This game can be opened for high schoolers, students, really anyone looking to break into cybersecurity, whether it be you're seasoned and you're trying to use element of chance. I think we've seen that where even people like myself and Megan, we're going through an incident and things happen. We have to figure out and try new things and maybe repeat steps to be successful. And that element of chance is always going to be there. So I would highly encourage everyone to just give it a shot. You're not going to be, no one's 100% an expert at everything, but that kind of collaboration is going to empower us to figure out and really solve challenges, especially from a defensive or offensive perspective. So I appreciate the game. We were unsuccessful this time. We'll get Sean next in the future, I hope.
Maybe three's the charm for us.
Yeah, definitely. That's right. Yeah. This is
I appreciate both of you playing along again today. We're hoping to do these on a fairly regular basis, so look out for another posting online. Otherwise, go ahead, spin up your game yourself. On the Black Hills Discord server, they have a channel to promote live stream games. So I know Peter, who's throwing in some comments here, hosts a fairly regular game as well. So lots of folks are doing this and should give you some good ideas on how you can bring some of this madness from some pretty complex incidents into your organization. But otherwise, until next time, thanks for hanging out for a little bit and hope you learned something new.
Have a great one, everybody. Thank you.